Welcome to Black Angus Reviews. Today we got an article from Cosmic Book News. Now I know some people might say this is total fake garbage, especially him referencing EVS repeatedly the last few days with Dan Didio's firing. This is all going to be rumor, but I wanted to report on it because it's got some cool ideas actually in this article. So let's go through here. Saying Marvel rumor to take over DC Comics. A big rumor has hit the net that in the wake of AT&T firing Dan Didio, that Marvel and Kevin Feige may take over DC Comics. It's claimed that AT&T wasn't happy at all with Dan Didio's latest attempt at rebooting DC Comics with the upcoming 5G event, aka the 5th generation reboot of DC, which would have seen classic characters replaced with a contemporary take on the characters. Generally, we assume that would be race swapping, sexuality swapping, or gender swapping of characters, but remains to be seen. It said that Dan Didio butted heads with Batman writer Scott Snyder over the 5G reboot, as Snyder didn't want the comics involved with the event, which caused problems at DC. So Friday saw Didio called into the AT&T Warner Brothers offices, where he was fired and let go from DC Comics, which saw Didio exit the grounds immediately. It's claimed that AT&T doesn't want to do the 5G reboot as they have too much at stake with the classic characters involved with the movies and television shows and the various merchandise products, divisions which do make money, as DC Comics sales have been rather poor. I like that little note, Matt. It said AT&T is considering using Hollywood, movie, and TV writers on the DC Comics, writers who already have a proven track record instead of comic book writers. An example would be James Gunn writing a comic, directing the Suicide Squad, Greg Berlanti returning to write for comics. He's the Arrowverse writer and producer. Or now, since J.J. Abrams with Warner Media, Abrams could write comics, such as how Abrams recently wrote Spider-Man with his son for Marvel. That was a big success. This is the point I wanted to address. James Gunn, if you go back, one of his first films, Super, is amazing. It really understands a grounded character while also being ridiculous in nature and how it presents what, you would kind of just gloss over in a comic with its action and raw grit, given the character's lack of powers. He's kind of a raw, gritty Batman type, no superpowers. How cool would it be and advantageous to pay out the same amount for, say, Guardians 3, but there's a clause where it's like, hey, James, to get this gig, you have to write us 6 issues of a story that preludes Guardians 3, or better yet, one to really hook people in the void in between films. Make the writer, make him create a comic mini-series to fill in a void up to the next event. Say there's a Guardians 3, then it's Avengers 5. You got to read this to understand where it's fully going, to really get all the details. Really, this is something that, from what I understand, Marvel's really missed. The beginning with the MCU, they kind of adapted the characters like the films, but then they just kind of quit focusing on that. This could be a way to, really capitalize on that and get people focused back on this medium, whether it's digital or physical. And some examples, I think, where they could have this power at the studio would be like, and this is just a rumor, I haven't confirmed this from any sources, but I saw somewhere this rumor that Will Smith did the Men in Black 2, he did the sequel to it, because Sony was dangling the Ali film in front of us. So it's like, hey, if we give you Ali, you got to do Men in Black for us. So that was supposedly backroom deals for that. And then also Ben Affleck supposed to do the Batman, and of course he'd retired as Batman, and so now he's got the Way Back, which is with a good director from what I've seen, but seems like this is well, you got to make up for ditching us. You got to make a film. I'm wondering if some of these creatives, these stars, have some sort of star contract, star system like they used to, where it's like, yeah, you're not here at this studio for 5-7 years, but we have so many movies you got to make for us. So kind of in effect, a star system contract. I don't know. And then you got stuff like Joss Whedon and Kevin Smith have kind of been creators who didn't have deals, from what I know, where they had to make stories, but they've been writers and creators for films and comics. I'm sure there's others. Just think how cool it would be if Chris Nolan was brought into another deal, maybe just as a producer, but to produce another film he had to write, or Denis Villeneuve with his trippy style. Just think if he could be teamed up with, I don't know, co-write with Neil Gaiman or something. I think they could pair well. So those are some ideas that were inspired by this little bit here with the reference of JJ and Berlanti and Gunn maybe writing comics. I think you essentially be double dipping off of them and paying out the same amount. So what guy's going to want to turn down doing these comics they love? So let's continue. Having the new 5G comic book characters such as Black Batman wouldn't fit with a Robert Pattinson Batman on the big screen, and all the marketing and promotion involved, toys, etc. He goes on to say, also that Marvel Comics tried a similar approach with their Marvel Now event. It saw classic characters replaced, which miserably failed. AT&T considering licensing DC Comics to Marvel. It's claimed that what AT&T is also contemplating is getting out of the publishing side of things altogether and farming DC Comics out, possibly to Marvel. Note, Van Sciver said AT&T will close down DC Comics if 5G fails. It said AT&T doesn't want to sell DC Comics because they see the value in the various intellectual properties, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, etc. The Lords of the Longbox YouTube channel does note that the rumor of Marvel taking over DC Comics might be just something thrown out there by AT&T and Warner's in order to see the fan reaction. But at the same time, notes that instead of having no DC Comics published, wouldn't it be better to have Marvel take over and publish the DC Comics characters? The YouTubers even go so far and state that as part of the deal, it could mean that Kevin Feige, who recently became in charge of Marvel Publishing, may develop some of the DC characters into movies, or even bring some of the characters into the MCU, such as through the multiverse. While this all might sound like a stretch, Disney and Sony have come to a deal over using Spider-Man in the MCU. So why not AT&T licensing out their DC characters, especially if AT&T has no interest in publishing? Interestingly enough, just this December saw Jeff Johns tease a DC Marvel crossover in the last issue of Doomsday Clock. Perhaps Johns' Doomsday Clock was also counting down to the doom of DC. Clever. I see this idea here that Matt's putting forward, kind of building off the Sony-Disney deal for Spider-Man and saying, well, DC could do something like this and let Feige make their movies and reap most of the reward. I don't know if they would want to, if Feige would be dumb enough to try to confuse his characters. A lot of people, would mix up Namor with Aquaman and stuff. So then my mom, she's a casual person. She would mix up Captain Marvel and Captain America and think, oh, they made Captain America a woman. I'm like, I have to explain all this. So I don't know, since there's a lot of similarities to a lot of the characters, you have to just kind of stick with the main, like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, who are very much defined from other people, like I just said. One idea I would counter maybe, or steer a different way, would be them going to Dark Horse or Image. I mean, when you see what James Gunn, as a producer, of course, was able to do with Brightburn, which is a $7 million movie. And if you watch it and you know that budget, you're like, wow, they did a lot with this budget. Image, or at least McFarlane by himself, is making a $10 million Spawn movie with Jamie Foxx. And also Dark Horse was rumored to be interested in making a female Mask movie. Don't know what's up with that since then. But they've had a history with, licensing out Hellboy to be made by Del Toro and stuff. And what DC does with their darkness, with their darker take on creations, I could see them doing better over there. And from what I know, there's some crossover. I think Black Hammer is doing something with Dark Horse. Sorry if I'm wrong about that, but I would see DC wanting to go a different route, just like I don't know, more of a neutral ground at least for them, instead of selling out to the direct competition. It would be like Kevin Durant going to Golden State. It's the ultimate sin, I think, to go with them. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll talk to you later.